RAF pilot missed crashing C-17 plane into bus packed with Kabul evacuees by just 10 ft amid Afghan chaos. An RAF pilot narrowly avoided crashing his transport plane into a bus packed with Afghan evacuees as the aircraft skimmed over the top with just 10 feet to spare. Wing Commander Kev Latchman revealed how his C-17 plane was hurtling along the runway when he saw three vehicles pull out in front of him at the airport in Kabul. Wing Commander Kev Latchman had a near miss while taking off from the airport in Kabul. Credit at Kev Latchman/Twitter. Kev Latchman described the chaotic conditions during Operation Pitting. Credit at Kev Latchman/Twitter. It is believed the vehicles, which included the bus packed with desperate Afghans trying to flee the Taliban, took a wrong turn amid the chaos. Wing Commander Latchman and his flight crew spotted them as they were just 1,000 feet away on the live runway. And then the crew had to make a split-second life-or-death decision. The C-17 was traveling too quickly to stop safely before colliding with the convoy, meaning even if they aborted they would still smash into them. So the hero pilots decided to proceed with the takeoff to try and overshoot the vehicles. Even though they were not going fast enough for their planned takeoff speed, the crew knew they had to get the 263 million pounds aircraft up or face a catastrophic disaster. At this point, we were doing about 95 knots and they were about 1,000 feet ahead of us, he told Sky News. With this speed and distance, it would mean the crew had just 6 seconds before a crash. The commander went on, "We realized that we wouldn't have been able to abort, the takeoff, because if I tried to reject then I would have basically taken out the bus and that doesn't really bear thinking about." Hurtling towards the bus and the other vehicles just moments from disaster, the crew decided to pull up. Wing Commander Latchman, the commander of 99 Squadron, gave the order to his co-pilot, and the plane managed to strain itself into the air with just 10 feet to spare. "We got airborne and we just missed the bus by probably about 10-15 feet," Wing Commander Kev Latchman. "So I said, I think we're going to need to rotate early. We started to rotate the aircraft about 20 knots earlier than rotate speed. We got airborne and we just missed the bus by probably about 10-15 feet." The incident took place on August 26, just hours after ISIS-K detonated a suicide bomb outside the main gate at Hamid Karzai International Airport. Wing Commander Latchman and his crew were working without runway lights due to a blackout. And air traffic controllers thought they would not have been able to make the takeoff without missing the bus. The airman added he was quite calm while dealing with the potential bus disaster. Quite calm. Wing Commander Latchman's story is just one of the tales to emerge from Operation Pitting, the UK's 2-week evacuation mission from Kabul. The RAF flew more than 15,000 Afghans, British nationals and others to safety in the biggest evacuation since World War II. The C-17 missed crashing into the Afghan bus by just 10 feet. Credit at Kev Latchman/Twitter. Crowds of desperate Afghans, many of whom had never flown before, were loaded, terrified and traumatized onto planes. And they had spent days navigating the chaotic conditions outside the airport, with blistering heat, food and water shortages, and brutal Taliban fighters roaming the crowds. The final days of the operation also took place under the fears of terror attacks, with militant group ISIS-K eyeing bloodshed to capitalize on the carnage. Military planes at the airport were reported to be making diving combat landings, while others fired flares as they took off to fend off any potential missile attack. "The conditions were stark, you know, when you look down the back, you've got anxious faces," said Latchman. "We had one lady who was spontaneously vomiting continuously all over the airplane because she'd lost her husband the day before and she didn't know what was going to happen." British, American and other allied forces defeated the Taliban in 2001 after they allegedly harbored al-Qaeda terrorists who plotted the World Trade Center attacks on September 11. Western nations have spent 20 years trying to rebuild Afghanistan as a new democratic government was installed and brutal laws enacted by the Taliban were ended. However, the occupation was under constant attack from terrorist forces, and US President Joe Biden had declared his desire to end so-called forever wars. Some 20 years of work was undone in a matter of weeks as the Taliban surged back to power, sometimes unopposed, and recaptured Kabul as Western forces boarded evacuation planes. US President Joe Biden in particular is facing heavy criticism over the botched handling of the withdrawal in what is being described as one of the biggest foreign policy disasters since the Vietnam War. When the Taliban last ruled Afghanistan, they imposed medieval-style laws with vicious executions, torture and brutal punishments. The group, however, appears to be attempting to present a more modern face with a slick PR operation, including an appearance "Good Morning Britain," and promises of an amnesty for their enemies. But reports of door-to-door killings are widespread, with any allies of the West particularly at risk. However, resistance forces holding out in Afghanistan's final free district, the Panjshir Valley, are continuing to fight back against the Taliban. Taliban show off kung fu jihadis in bizarre propaganda video which also shows suicide bomb vests.